Okay, back to talk about adrenal medulla. This one's pretty simple. There's only a couple slides here, not much to really cover. Some concepts more than so many layers, right? So the adrenal medulla is going to be the inner portion. And hopefully we can go back and look at the cortex being on the outside, the medulla being on the inside. If you don't, you'll see it in lab when you look at the slides. But we have specific cells inside the adrenal medulla, these chromatin cells, and they secrete catecholamines, or catecholamines, however you say it, but I say catecholamines. These, just like we talked about mineral corticoids and glucocorticoids and gonatocorticoids, you need to know this name as well, not just that it's epinephrine and norepinephrine. They are two different types of catecholamines. So these cells secrete epinephrine and norepinephrine, 80%, 20%. It's not an even. They produce both, but more epinephrine. What do these hormones do? You could think of these as adrenaline, right? So they're going to cause blood glucose levels to rise. They're going to cause blood vessels to constrict, increase blood pressure, right? They're going to cause your heart to beat faster. And they're going to cause blood to be diverted to your major organs, so your skeletal muscle or major organs for fight or flight, sympathetic, right? So to your brain, your heart, and your skeletal muscles. Again, that analogy, the bear is chasing you. What do you need to do? You need to increase blood pressure. You need to increase your heart rate. You need to have blood diverted to your heart and your skeletal muscles to get more glucose, more oxygen, to produce more ATP, right? Even though we have both of these hormones, they each kind of have their own tasks that they're better at. So they can both exert the same effects, but epinephrine is better at stimulating these particular functions. So you can see metabolic activities, bronchial dilation, in your lungs, right? Blood flow to your skeletal muscles. Why would your bronchioles want to dilate? You want to be able to get more oxygen in, right? Okay, norepinephrine influences, it's better at vasoconstriction. And again, hopefully we can look at this and automatically know vasoconstriction. If we constrict the blood vessel, what is that going to do? It's going to increase blood pressure, right? And then we also talk here about increasing your heart rate. That's going to cause blood flow to get more quickly to your skeletal muscles. What are they going to drop off? They're going to drop off glucose and oxygen, and that's going to create more ATP so that they can actually do their job and you can run away from your attacker. Okay, this is an overall picture of kind of everything we've been talking about. So I want you to notice the difference here at the top between short-term and long-term. So get the pen going when it will. No, see? There we go. Okay, so here we have short-term stressors. So this is that equivalent of like adrenaline, right? So here's stress. Somebody's chasing you. It's going to send a signal to the neuron in the hypothalamus. It's going to directly stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, right? That goes into your medulla. Remember, anything inside here, the inner part is the medulla. And what is that going to do? That's going to cause these catecholamines, epinephrine and norepinephrine, to be released into your bloodstream. And it's going to cause all these wonderful effects, right? Increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. You're going to have more glucose released. Your liver is going to take glycogen and break it down. Glycogen is just a bunch of glucoses stuck together. And remember, we need one single glucose to turn it into ATP. It's going to dilate the bronchioles so you can get more oxygen. It's going to change the blood flow patterns, get more blood flow to your brain, to your heart, to your skeletal muscles, and increase your metabolic rate. Increase the amount of glucose and oxygen you can turn into ATP. Do it faster, right? So this is an example of a direct neural, right? Neural stimulus. We have a neuron carrying the message to the gland, okay? And then it releases a hormone. So this is one of those examples of a neural stimulus releasing a hormone. In the beginning of the endocrine system chapter, it talks about these different stimuli, and I talked about it last lecture that you should go brush up on it if you haven't seen it. We also had humoral, which I don't have an exact example here, but if you go back to the adrenal cortex, when we talked about monitoring blood flow or monitoring the amount of potassium that you had in your system, that would be an example of humoral. Monitoring the blood flow or what's in the blood, and then having a hormone release based on blood. That was humoral. Then this example here, this on the second side of the page, when we have a more prolonged stress, this is a great example of hormonal, right? So the hypothalamus in this prolonged stress, hypothalamus causes the corticotropin releasing hormone to be released. That hormone triggers what? The anterior pituitary to release ACTH, and then that causes the adrenal cortex to release either glucocorticoids or mineralocorticoids. So this is a really good example of a hormonal stimulus. What does that mean? One hormone triggers another hormone to be released. That's it. So why would this be good for long term? Well, what do mineralocorticoids do? They trigger increased potassium, increased water retention, right? So if you increase your water retention, it's going to increase your blood volume. Hey, where'd it go? There we go. I didn't do anything, I promise. Okay, back here. There we go. Silly computer. Okay. No, it still doesn't want to work. Okay, I won't use the pen then. Let me just get through this. So obviously if you have a mineralocorticoid, it's going to increase sodium absorption, increase water retention. The more water you have in your blood, the greater the blood volume. The greater the blood volume, the greater the blood pressure. Why do you want increased blood pressure? You want to be able to get the glucose and the oxygen to your skeletal muscles and your brain and your heart so you can run away from your attacker. It's also going to allow glucocorticoids to be released. What's the major point of glucocorticoids? They're going to take fats and turn them into glucose. And then what are you going to do? You're going to take the glucose and turn it into more energy. It's also going to increase the amount of blood glucose that's floating around in your bloodstream. The more glucose in your bloodstream, the more it can get to your muscles, the more ATP you can make. It's also going to suppress your immune system. Basically, you want to conserve, if you're in a stressful environment, somebody's mugging you, attacking you, a bear's chasing you, you want to conserve all of your energy to the systems that are going to keep you alive, right? So short term, we're going to bombard you with epinephrine and norepinephrine, which is going to cause all of these increased blood pressure, increased heart rate. If you have stress over a long period of time, not only are we releasing the catecholamines, the epinephrine and the norepinephrine, we're also releasing the mineralocorticoids and the glucocorticoids to help with the long-term conversion of glucose or fats into glucose, or the long-term retention of water to increase your blood volume and increase your blood flow. So again, this is a picture that I would look at and really make sure that I can give as much information. If this was, going to be on your test, could you explain this entire picture? Why is it short term? Why is it long term? What's the difference between a neural stimulus and a hormonal stimulus? Give examples of why catecholamines do what they do. Why do they increase blood pressure? Give an example of why mineralocorticoids increase blood pressure. Talk about how glucocorticoids increase glucose volume, or glucose volume in the blood, to be more specific. So I'd make sure that you could really look at this picture and give as much information as you possibly can about it. All right, let me see if I can get this thing to do what I want it to do now. There we go. This is the very last slide. Hypersecretion of catecholamines. So if you have too much epinephrine or too much norepinephrine, it's this pheochromocytoma, crazy word. Pretty much you have uncontrolled sympathetic nervous system function. So your sympathetic nervous system is telling you constantly to release epinephrine and norepinephrine, but you're not under great stress. It's just constantly being secreted anyway. So what is this going to do? You can go back to that picture and look. I'm going to point it out to you here, but if the pen will do what I want it to do. I just maybe going too fast for the pen. So if you have hypersecretion of these catecholamines, this is going to have hyperglycemia, so increased glucose, right? You're going to have increased metabolic rate. You're going to have increased heart rate. You're going to have hypertension. Why you have hypertension? If you have increased blood volume and you have increased blood pressure, you're going to have hypertension, right? Increased metabolic rate, because you're trying to convert that glucose into as much ATP as possible. So you're going to have increased metabolic rate. The sweating has to do with heating up your body, right? If you're constantly triggering your skeletal muscles to work, then in the contraction, they also generate heat. So with contraction heat, if you want to cool your body off, we do sweating, right? And then the sweat is evaporated and it pulls that heat from our body with it, and that's evaporative cooling. So you can go back and look at the picture and on this page right here and look at all the things that would happen if you had a hypersecretion of catecholamines. So you can look here, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, all those good things. All right, I think that's it for this lecture. Enjoy. It can be fun. Just make sure that you go back and you understand all the words and the terms. There's a lot of new terms here. So I would definitely make a little chart. You know, what is a mineralocorticoid, aldosterone? What does it do? What is it, if there's too much or there's too little, what happens then? So if the more you can chart this information or do some sort of flow chart, the better off you'll be at studying for the next unit exam. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you guys next lecture. Bye.